Let's start to dive into the technical side of micro front ends. The first thing we're going to cover is exactly what a micro front end is. Obviously, a really important part of understanding what these things are all about and how to use them. So, to really understand micro front ends, I first want to imagine that we are building some kind of e commerce application like the one you see right here. So, maybe our e commerce application has two separate pages to it, a page to list out all the different products we have for sale, and then another page to show a shopping cart, essentially all the items that a user intends to purchase. So in our application, we have these two separate pages. Let's imagine that we are building an application like this using a classic approach where we have one single page application. We might build this using React or Vue or Angular. And inside this project, we might have a lot of code around implementing some kind of product listing page and a lot of code to implement something around a shopping cart page. Because all the code for our entire application is in one single code base, we might refer to this as a monolithic single page application. If we wanted to turn this into a micro front end application, then we could take a look at our original mockups and then try to identify each distinct and major feature inside of our app. So inside of our application here, we really have two major distinct features. We've got the product listing page and the shopping cart page. After identifying each of these major features, we can then split each of them into their own separate code base. So we might have all the code for our product listing inside of one single page application using React, Vue, Angular, or whatever else. And we might have all the code for our shopping cart inside of a totally separate application. Now, as soon as we start to split up these two different code bases, we start to run into a lot of interesting questions very quickly. For example, if a user clicks on this add to cart button right here, we clearly have some kind of need to add this product to this cart listing page over here. Well, inside of a micro front end approach kind of application, as much as possible, we try to prevent direct communication between these two distinct projects. Instead, to accomplish something like, say, adding a product to a cart, we would instead have our product listing application maybe make some kind of request to an API that manages all the data inside the user's shopping cart. And then whenever a user loads up the shopping cart application to see their products that they've added to their cart, the shopping cart app would make a request to that same API and get a listing of all the products that is in their cart. You'll notice that we do not have any kind of direct communication between these two smaller applications. Now, why would we use micro front ends? What benefit do we get to splitting these things up into separate apps? Well, there's one gigantic, very large benefit that we get, and that is that each of these applications can now be thought of as separate, independent apps. There's no direct communication between them. There's no direct dependency between them. And that means that we could assign the development of product listing to, say, engineering team number one, and we could assign the development of this shopping cart app to a totally separate engineering team. These can be two different engineering teams inside of our company, and they could decide to make radically different technical decisions for implementing each of these projects. So for example, engineering team number one could decide to build this project using React, and maybe engineering team number two could decide to implement this using Angular or something else. Now, of course, we'd probably want to limit the number of frameworks being used at our company, but the point here is that each engineering team can build their application with their own preferred development style, whatever works best for them. Okay, so let's summarize what we've covered inside this video. So micro front ends are where we take a monolithic application and we divide it into multiple smaller applications. Each of these smaller applications are responsible for one distinct major feature of our product. As much as possible, we try to prevent these different micro applications from communicating with each other directly. We make use of micro front ends because it allows multiple different engineering teams to work on the same overall application, but in total isolation. So if engineering team A, or number one, makes some kind of breaking change to their app, it's not going to necessarily break some other part of our application. In addition, when we start to divide our application out into micro front ends, it makes each of these smaller parts a lot easier to understand and make changes to without accidentally breaking some other part of our app as well. Okay, so good intro. Let's take a pause right here and go a little bit deeper in the next video.